Hello and welcome to DVB English News. I'm Joe. In this week's headlines, the National Unity Government vows to repeal the 1982 Citizenship Law. Beijing to help Naypyidaw establish its electronic identification system. Aung San Suu Kyi's son Kim Aris speaks out over his mother's deteriorating health. And Sean Turnell speaks to DVB about Aung San Suu Kyi's spirit and determination in prison. The National Unity Government, or NUG, states that it and the Committee Representing Pidong Suluta, or CRPH, would replace the 1982 Citizenship Law. It deprives the Rohingya of citizenship in Myanmar. The NUG also vowed to repeal the National Verification Card process and the 2015 Race and Religion Protection Laws. The NUG added it would enact laws prohibiting discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. China agreed to help Naypyidaw with its planned national census during a meeting between it and Chinese officials in Beijing on September 18th. China will help the regime implement its electronic identification, or EID system. Naypyidaw has been collecting biometric data from Burmese citizens over the past few months to use for its EID. It will hold a trial census next month and the national census next year. Officials from the military proxy, Union Solidarity and Development Party said that the regime plans to hold its election in 2025. Civil society organizations have expressed concern that the EID system could be used for mass surveillance. On our last episode of the podcast, we reported that Aung San Suu Kyi's health has deteriorated in prison, where she's been held since the military coup on February 1st, 2021. Aung San Suu Kyi's son Kim Aris has made repeated requests to talk to his mother, but all have been ignored by the military.
My mother was unable to eat, and she had potential problems with gum disease, as well as maybe wisdom tooth issues, and at one point she was vomiting and dizzy. She's 78 years old. She's not as robust as she once was. If she's unable to eat, then things are not looking very hopeful, really. She's not allowed access to her legal counsel. She's not allowed visitors. She's not allowed to mingle with the other prisoners. This is, as far as I'm aware, is basically a form of solitary confinement.
DVB Interview host Yamin Myat Aye sat down with Australian economist Sean Turnell to discuss his 650 days in jail after the military coup in Myanmar. Turnell was Aung San Suu Kyi's policy advisor under the National League for Democracy government. He talks about the last time he saw Aung San Suu Kyi and her living conditions in prison.
I met Dorsu every week for a whole year. So our trial took a whole year, and we went to the court every Thursday, and in the mornings we would have about half an hour where we could talk, and she was wonderful. So just to reassure people in Myanmar, Dorsu is exactly as you remember. She's strong, she's resilient, she's full of hope, she's funny, she's clever, and she just kept the spirits of all the rest of us up. In fact, she was more concerned that she never complained once about herself or anything like that. She was always concerned to keep our spirits up. She was very concerned to tell us things like, look, don't get too caught up in all the quasi-judicial things that you see around you. This is all nonsense. It's not a real court. The charges are crazy. She was just absolutely wonderful. So I'm distressed now to hear that she's unwell. I mean, it's just terrible that the conditions they hold her in. I would be, I think, one of the last people to have spoken to her that's been released. So I spoke to her almost a year ago now, just a few weeks short of a year ago, the very last day of our trial. But the conditions she was in is pretty awful. It's not like sometimes the regime likes to spread stories that she's under some sort of house arrest, or even to say that she's well cared for and so on. That's just not true. I was about 100 meters away from her in the Naypyidaw detention centre, where they built this little structure to house her in, but it was not in any way luxurious. It wasn't even comfortable. And it's just shameful, the way that they would treat someone of her eminence. a woman of her stature and bearing and age and so on. So unfortunately, I'm not surprised that she's ill.
And that's all for DVB English News. I'm Joe. Tune in again next week for the latest headlines from Myanmar. Thanks for listening.